What's up, guys? In this episode we are going to go through my custom built Cuphead and I'm going to show you what I did to make this happen. This is an absolutely amazing game. Highly recommend if no one has played it before, but let's get to the video. Alright guys, so I'm going to go over a couple things here. We'll first start out with no original Nintendo cabs were injured, scarred, delimbed, or anything. This was a cabinet that was scratch built. This is actually built out of 3/4 inch melamine. So both sides are black, already done. We didn't have to do any painting to the actual cabinet shell itself. I wanted to do that because obviously I restore games, but I'm not going to take apart a working Nintendo cab to build this. For some reason people say, well, why did you use this style cabinet? Well, I used this style cabinet because it just fit the bill for this style art. Always the Nintendos had a really cool bezel artwork, as you can see, that I've done here. So it just allowed me a really good platform to work that I envisioned the art to go with. It's the right size, it just fit. So this is what I chose to do. I do have an actual glass tinted bezel on this particular one. Reverse mounted marquee. The control panel I made, this is reverse mounted just like your traditional Nintendo cabinets have. And I wanted to do that to keep that uniformity look. So we got some instructions here, and one of the things that all Nintendo cabs have, except for the wide body, is the single speaker grill. But because this game is a new, more modern system, I wanted it to have stereo, so I routed out this second side so that that would be matching the other side. And then when I got done and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, what could I do to make it kind of a cool effect? So now you can see in there, I don't know how well that works with the lighting, but I have one of those LED flame lights, one on each side, inside. So it shows the lights, kind of looks like his hands or behind his hands are on fire. And then what I wanted to do is think of another way to go another step level or further, was having lighted buttons. I didn't really want LED lighted buttons, so my good buddy Bryan from Cuphead Arcade, he hooked me up with these buttons, and these have a clear outer acrylic ring, and then these are colored, but they're also transparent. So the light now from these is actually glowing up through. But it gave a really cool look to the buttons, and it just is the light from underneath. Same with player 1 and 2. We have clear rings here, and then the light is allowed to come through that. So I thought that was a really cool effect that I haven't really seen done before. So I bought these lights on Amazon. Now there's a bunch of different lights on Amazon, and I'll actually put that in a comment after this post is done as far as what actual light I went with, because there's a lot of lights out there that don't look as good. There's some lights that you can see the actual LED dots, so it doesn't look very realistic. But reading some reviews and doing some research, these were 100%, not even the most expensive either, very reasonably priced LED lights. I don't remember offhand what they ended up costing, but they were really nice. So one of the other things that was very challenging with this game was figuring out how to operate. This game was never intended to be in an arcade. This was designed by two brothers in 2010, I believe, right? 2010, yes. So two guys, the brothers are Chad and Jared. Yes, sorry about that. These guys developed this game. It was like 5, 6, 7 years in the making. And what they did was they went by the 1930s cartoon style. So the reason this whole project came about for myself, when I first saw the first reviews and talk of this game, I was very interested in the art style and what it looked like. I was just intrigued by the design and how they captured this 1930s cartoon, like the old Popeye and Woody Woodpecker, like old school stuff. So when I first played the game, I was instantly in love with this game. I was like, oh my God, I just couldn't believe how cool this game was. And I just envisioned, wow, this would be a cool game to make into an arcade machine. The problem is converting a console or a PC into an arcade. It's not the easiest thing to do. Now, obviously, this is a widescreen LCD. I believe it's a 21 or 23 inch. I don't even remember right now. But the controllers were one of the biggest problems. So I didn't want to stand here and hold joysticks and buttons. That wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. That would kind of defeat the whole purpose of having that. So they have these things called pad hacks. And this is a pad hack. Basically, they're taking an Xbox One or a 360 controller and you take it apart and then it's put into this box. A lot of people do it without a box like this and it doesn't look nearly as clean. And then this is now running the buttons to, it's kind of like an iPack, but you're able to plug this into your console or computer and then run to your buttons. Now this particular one I purchased from a friend of mine, and this was designed for an Xbox One console, like some of the new fighting games that you've seen. I've done some art for Injustice and some other games, but for some reason I couldn't get this thing to register for 360, even though this thing said Xbox One and 360. On a computer, it didn't work. Even Windows, whatever, it just didn't see this controller. So my buddy Christian, he works for me and he's really good at this stuff. He took an actual Xbox 360 controller and he made the same thing, but for a dedicated 360 controller. And we'll look in the back in a little bit exactly what that looks like. But so there has to be one for each player, and these are inside, and now you can just wire up your buttons like you normally would, and then this plugs into the console. Now, one of the things I didn't want to do was just use an Xbox One in here. That would have been an easy solution, but the problem with that is when you turned on an Xbox One, you're going to go to what? The main menu. Then you're going to just look at the Xbox One. It's not very creative, and it's just like it's been done. Too many people, not so much with this game, but with arcade machines in general. And then they're just going to turn it on, and then you got to sit there and go through the menu. You're going to need a controller or something to go to the menu, pick the game. It just, to me, would kill the experience of an arcade machine. So I talked to him. I'm like, listen, I need to run this thing. Now, this was released on Windows and Xbox One, but I didn't want to run Windows, and he's really good with Linux. So he got this thing to run in Linux with Wine. So now this thing is able to boot right into the game. So one button operation, I plug it in, I turn it on, and it goes right into the game. That to me is like playing a PCB. So we don't have all that menu and all that shit to deal with. And then the nice other thing about it is one button and it shuts right down. So it's kind of like instant sheller for Windows, but we're just running Linux with Wine. Now, we were lucky that not all games are supported in Wine, but this particular game did work very well. And that was a nice feature to have, to be able to do that. So once I knew that we could do that, that made this project go much, like I was more enthusiastic about that. So is there any questions up to this point? Anybody have any questions?
No, people are just saying hi to each other.
Am I blowing your brains out with information yet? The graphics, I designed these graphics, obviously. I just was so inspired by this art that it just came together. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Some jobs just flow and others don't. But this particular one, it did for me. I felt that I just had a lot of creativity with it, and I was so inspired by the game that I learned a lot about the game too, researching and doing. So it was really, really a lot of fun.
Chris said he's looking forward to picking it up on Saturday.
Yeah, man, this is you, buddy. You're gonna love it. I wanted to do this film before you take it because then I won't have it anymore. So I'm like, honey, you're gonna have to film me because I gotta get this thing done. So let's take a peek down here. Lower the camera for me. And I want to show you in the front. So one of the things, another thing that I wanted to do is I didn't want a computer to be just sitting inside like a full-fledged PC shelled in there. I was like, again, that's not creative enough, and I really wanted it to be beyond that. So I also wanted to be able to have operations from the front. So here's what we did. Custom designed this plate in here, and we detached from the main board. The power button is right here. I have 2 USBs, so if we did need to go into any kind of main menu or anything, we could use a keyboard, or a joystick could be plugged in here if somebody really wanted to use a joystick. Okay. Also now we're running Logitech stereo with a sub. So this is my volume right here. As you can hear, plenty loud enough. And that staticky sound you hear, that's actually part of the game because it is designed to be around the 1930s. So that is natural, normal. So this was kind of a challenge just to get this to happen, to look clean and like that. You know, I didn't want to look inside there. So to me, I thought that came out really, really well. And what I did decide to do on this game was I used matte on this laminate. So the whole thing is a dead flat matte because it's supposed to have that old aged look. And in the graphic, it kind of has a mottled type of rustic look to it. I don't know if, can you see the flames down there at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could see it's got like a mottled look.
So off the top of your head, do you have your computer specs for this? Or is
I do.
Okay.
Somebody wanting it?
Yeah.
Okay. This is running an Intel Pentium G3258. I have 8 gigabytes of RAM. The video card that we use is an NVIDIA GTX 1060. I have a 550 watt power supply in here and a 256 solid state hard drive. So the hard drive, for a couple of reasons, obviously years ago solid states weren't something that was so common, but today it's almost foolish not to have an operating system on that. For many reasons. One, it boots way faster, and 2, it's so stable you don't have to worry about that moving parts of that hard drive failing. Almost every original hard drive that you have on a computer is going to fail. But with this, there's no moving parts, so the stability of that is so much greater, especially this thing is moving around. Not that the average person is going to move it around a lot, but still, it's a no-brainer to go with solid state hard drive. And you don't need a huge hard drive space for this. I had this dedicated just for this game. So could you play other games? You could, but that wasn't the intention of this. I wanted this to be solely dedicated for that. Now them computer specs is a little overkill for what this game is, but it still makes it run flawlessly. And then it does have, like I said, the Logitech stereo with sub. So there's actually a subwoofer inside that we will see there shortly. So I'm going to rotate this so you can see the sides if somebody hasn't seen it before. So you can see the artwork here has that same kind of mottled textured look with the satin or the matte. And also with this having the melamine surface, this thing was perfectly smooth. It's flawless. All right, so actually I could spin this whole thing around so that we can go and look in the inside. Bear with me here. Okay, first, one of the challenges was, am I too close? No? Okay. One of the challenges was how close to get that monitor. Originally, I had the monitor closer. Now, I created the artwork on purpose to kind of come into the windowed area, but I had it too close and it was kind of cutting off the screen. So I backed that up, got the pitch back a little bit, and that worked out much better. This is a piece of wood that's been recessed, routed out. So there's actually like a 3/8 rabbited edge in there. So that monitor fits flush. Is that close enough? Can you see it? So the monitor fits flush, so from the front you cannot see the frame of the monitor at all. So you're just seeing the windowed area. And then it's held in place. It's actually almost a perfect fit as it is, but then with this wood back here and screwed in, it ain't going anywhere. And then it's got these supports with these screws going in. So I was able to get the bottom in first and then adjust my pitch to the happy place that I liked. It's running HDMI. So this is a new Element monitor, and it's HDMI to the video card. Okay. Now, you might want to put the camera down a little bit. Let me give you a little more light in case you need it. Hey, you want to hold this for them? Okay, so right here we have the two new pad hacks. Okay, my buddy Christian, like I said before, he 3D printed these, and then these are now mounted down here. A couple things that we had to do inside here is I had to extend, this is like an 8-inch, maybe even wider panel that comes back. And a couple things I needed that for. One was these, and for these lights. So these lights are actually drilled in from underneath, and they're mounted flush, and then the speakers are actually along both sides of that. Now, the control panel itself actually has two latches like your traditional arcade latches, and that unlatches, and then you can disconnect. You would just have to disconnect the controllers, and then that whole control panel is on its own. Okay? One of the things that I said that I wanted to do was make the PC itself not just a case in there. So we decased the PC completely. I don't know, can you see that there? So that's just the bottom part where, or the side where the motherboard mounted. Okay, cut all the other parts away. Power supply, everything is there. You can see where the one part runs now to the front for the two USBs and the power supply. And then we have the subwoofer. Now everything is completely secure and mounted, hard mounted. So there's nothing moving anywhere. Same with this sub. You didn't want this sub to be just floating around or sitting back there. So we built this box, and it actually has rubber around this so that it'll take the absorption of the sub sounds, right? And then this is screwed down to the floor, so this ain't going anywhere. And then we have a power strip here that everything is plugged into. And that's pretty much, that's it. The light up top is an LED light inside, and I adjusted forward to back to get it to the proper level of light, you know, that I wanted as far as brightness goes. I do have casters on this, and that's pretty much it. Now this is how we could do any kind of PC based arcade cabinet or console. But like I said, the reason I didn't want to do a console is I didn't want a console to just be sitting in the back. That would have obviously been an easy way to do it, but it wouldn't have been, to me, as good of a process, or not as creative and not as elaborate. So I went all out with this one. So any other questions at all? Nothing? Well guys, this actually is going to a new home, and I'm sure he's excited to pick that up Saturday. And I hope he has many years of fun with this with his family. People are like, why did you sell it? Well, for me, half of the fun is building it. So once I build something, and plus we needed a new camper. So I wanted to get a new camper for the family. This is our daughter's last summer here before she goes to college. So we wanted to enjoy the last summer. So I sold a couple different things to try to let that happen. And it did happen. So we've already went on our first trip. We're going to be going next weekend again. And thanks to this, helped us out. It's something new, it's new, innovative, but these guys, these two brothers did an amazing job with this. It is just something different. You know, today there's not a whole lot of new things that are coming out. It's always the same old, same thing, and this is something that's just very, very different. So if you guys haven't looked, you need to check these guys out at Studio MDHR. And they did an amazing, amazing job. They just released this week that they are now coming out with an add-on for this. So there's going to be like additional levels to download. Some, I don't know if it's weapons or bosses. I didn't even get to read the whole thing, but it's definitely something that they're, either it's released or it's going to be releasing soon. So that's cool that it's still growing. And this thing sold ridiculous numbers. I mean, this went gold, so. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope this has answered a couple questions for anyone that was curious as to how this thing was running. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I will see you then.